While not directly related to the current parak, this video will continue the discussion from the previous video of David expanding the borders to the Gvulot Havtacha, or the promised borders from the Torah. This time, we'll zoom in on a particular point of the border in the Negev, which we've only touched upon briefly in the past. For this, we revisit the mysterious Mitzudot of the Negev, or desert fortresses. When we last discussed Nachalat Shimon, in our video for Yoshua Perek Chaf Aleph, we noted how while Shimon didn't receive their own Nachalah entirely, they were settled within the Nachalah of Yehuda, and even noted the specific cities and towns that they had settled in Beersheba and its surrounding areas. This is true for Sefer Yoshua in its time, but apparently that wasn't a permanent solution. In fact, when we look at a parallel pasuk at the time of Divrei Yamim Aleph Perek Dalet, it lists the towns in the Beersheba area as being settled by Shimon at that time, but then adds a phrase that we don't have in Yoshua, Ad Meloch David, meaning this was all still the case when Sefer Yoshua was written. But Divrei Yamim, looking back with a perspective that includes later events as well, knows that Shimon only remained there until some point during David's rule. Now, as we learn about David, we learn about some of their towns being plundered and taken over by Amalek and other marauding nomads until David, who was settled in Ziklag and in theory working for Achish of Gat, redeemed these towns and cities for Yehuda. In fact, numerous times from here on in the Tanakh, it will refer to Beersheba and the surrounding area explicitly as Negev Yehuda, perhaps pointing to the fact that it's no longer inhabited by Shimon. Okay, so Yehuda gets the land back that it lent to Shimon, the wandering Shevet. But what ends up happening with them? In modern times, archaeologists debate without much success the finding of dozens of small sites like where I'm standing now, little homesteads in the Negev south of the Beersheba Valley. The pottery is a mix of classic Israelite pottery and a more rough local pottery only found in these towns. The houses are the classic four-room houses as we've come to know as Israelite, and the little settlements have little basic casemate walls to protect them. All the signs seem to point to it having been inhabited by Israelites, but they can't seem to come to any agreement on it, as they have no explanation for who would have been settled here and why. These aren't like the multi-layered tells that you have layer upon layer of civilization. These are just a single layer dated to around the times of David HaMelech with nothing there before and abandoned shortly after, perhaps around the time of Rechavam, the son of Shlomo, with the splitting of the Melucha. Rav Yoel ben Nun brings a fascinating suggestion. Perhaps these are the new towns of Shevet Shimon in David's time. They lose the area they'd been in to the nomads. David gets it back for Yehuda, but still finds a place for Shimon. Whereas in the past, they were on the border of Yehuda in the area of Beersheba, it's time for Yehuda to expand, to include the important strategic area of Beersheba, and to stop the invading nomads from coming in. As such, one of the best ways to do that is to settle the edge of the desert. They have an empty area to settle and a Shevet without a Nachalah. It fits. Not only that, but as David's pushing his kingdom to fill the borders promised in the Torah, in Bamidbar Lamed Dalet, we find the following description of the southern border. והיה לכם פת נגב ממדבר צין על ידי אדום, והיה לכם גבול נגב מקצה ים המלח קדמה. The southern borders described in the pasuk and the following ones basically place the southern border more or less right up to Machtesh. All of these new settlements are found within the area south of the Beersheba Valley and only until Machtesh Hamon, with none extending farther south than the southern Gvulot Havtacha just mentioned. But where do they disappear to after? We find reference later to Shimon having joined up farther north with Manasseh around the times of the split of the kingdoms. Here again, we see David HaMelech looking to complete the parts of his mission that he can, completing the settlement of the land and filling its borders in a secure manner, fighting off Amalek, and preparing the way towards the building of the Beis HaMikdash as best he can.